who have, like, reached a level of kind of mastering the ego. Not saying that we've eradicated it, because we always have new ones popping up.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But, you know, when it's exposed, the way of dealing with it is to show compassion and humility and not make people feel ostracized or, you know, like they've done something wrong. You know, that's where family meetings are important, and really just being transparent but in love to keep harmony and peace.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm just, you know, I'm enjoying the show. I'm in agreement with everything you just shared. It's just your views are very similar to mine. And I just wanted to share that, really. I mean, you know, and that's it. That's my experience of living in communities with others.
Right.
With, you know, strangers as well, because you're going to have strangers coming in. You know, everyone has a part to play. Everyone brings something to the table. But again, it's, you know, understanding, patience, compassion, tolerance, all those attributes that help to make it work.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, sister, for calling in. It's really a breath of fresh air to hear sisters, because we only had a few sisters. Now, a lot of them have been listening. They don't really want to, you know, have too much to say, but we have a say. You know, we are the nurturers. We are the mothers of civilization. We need to speak now. Now's the time for us to speak up. So we do have another hand raised, and we appreciate you for all your love and light and all your wonderful information that you're giving us, and we appreciate you for taking out your time to call in and continue to listen and continue to do great things. Give thanks, sister.
Give thanks.
Peace and love. So we're going to go to, we have another hand raised, 786-2291. Greetings, you're live on the air. Welcome to Right Knowledge Radio.
Peace, Queen. This is Fatima, Sanasha Divine.
Greetings. Greetings. Give thanks. It's a pleasure to have you here on the line. I know you have been listening to the show thus far, and a sister like yourself who's very into communal living, who is very holistic, who has been helping here in Miami, doing great things with educating our people about how to eat properly, how to diet, how to exercise, and just how to deal with their holy temple on a righteous level. What would you like to say as a sister that's ready for community living? What advice would you like to give our listening audience?
Particularly the women, but this is, you know, it goes for everyone. But personal development is very important. You know, we really have to begin to focus on, you know, what's going on in our inner world and begin to eliminate these many distractions that we have, you know, constantly bombarding us. You know, many things that are pulling our focus away from, excuse me? Yeah, we have to be just more selective with the things that we allow to grab our attention. We're so easily being pulled in so many different directions, and because we lack emotional intelligence, it's easy for us to be manipulated and controlled. You know, so a lot of the things that I feel that would benefit us, especially, you know, women of color, is if we just, you know, begin to do things like stop watching these TV shows that do not benefit us.
Absolutely.
You know, unplug the radio, you know, turn your TV off. You know, I had cable since I lived in this house I lived in for like 7 years, so I don't even watch that garbage. You know, so being more mindful of what it is that we're allowing to, you know, condition our minds, and just being aware of that stuff, being aware of what it is that we put into our bodies. You know, take time out to really get in tune with our bodies. I was telling a sister the other day that she said that, well, you know, my man doesn't mind if I have, you know, like a big stomach or whatever. And I'm like, look, it's not even, I say, but you know what? Your core says a lot about you. You know, your core, you know, your diet, your health, your skin. You know, so come out of these crazy mindsets that, you know, it's okay to be fat or thick or all of these things.
Chunky,
no, it's not okay when you're not healthy. You know, so we really just have to, I mean, it's so much different things that's going on within us, but we have to just go in and work on personal development, because I feel like the best thing that you can do for anyone is to become a better version of yourself, because if you're not operating and moving from your highest space, you're not going to really be a benefit to anyone who you cross paths with. You know, you're not going to be able to give them the best of you. So work on that. Work on, you know, constantly growing, elevating, you know, learning more, you know, perfecting your speech, perfecting your diet, you know, your relationships, the way you feel about yourself, the way you identify yourself with the rest of the world, and things like that, and disconnect from shit that's just irrelevant, you know, and really that's not going to serve you at all.
I have a question for you, sister. I have a question. You know, in our communities, there's a lot of our brothers and sisters that would like to be in polygamous relationships. And a lot of times they really don't work because of the disagreeables. And sometimes they have agreeables, but they may bring in a disagreeable into the relationship. You as a sister, a conscious sister, that understands polygamy, what advice that we would be ready for community living for our brothers and sisters that would love to live in a community, living together in a polygamous environment for sisters? What would be your suggestion when two sisters decide they're going to be with the brother?
Well, I believe that, you know, first of all, if you have not reached a certain level of emotional intelligence, personal development, just don't even try to go that route, because it's a recipe for disaster. You know, it's not going to happen. You know, so if that is something that you're interested in, you know, being in a polygamous situation, because you have to really, it's not even about you. You know, it's not just about you. You can't be selfish. You can't be just operating from a place of ego. So you have to have reached a certain level of, you know, of just personal development and emotional intelligence, more importantly, to be able to be in that type of situation. And you got to also understand that it's not always all about sex, because I think that's how a lot of people get tripped up. They think that, you know, it's just all about sex. It's not even about that. You know, it's not. I've had, you know, polygamous couples of families that I know. I you know, even though I'm not connected directly in the family, I still have no problem with working with the family, you know, building any way that I can and sharing my knowledge. And it doesn't always have to have anything to do with sex. And I think that sometimes that's what people tend to think, you know.
They really do. That is so, so true. Well, what last words of advice would you give for our, you know, people that would love to build a nation and live in a community environment? What's the most imperative message that you would like to get forth for us to live in harmony without fuss and fight and strife, and this one don't like that one and she said this, and the whole turmoil, and then, you know, it just falls apart? How can we keep it together? How can we keep that mesh together? How can we keep that solid rock so the rock doesn't crumble and, you know, disintegrate?
Well, I would say we just need to really just look at our current condition and see that, you know, this individual, you know, I'm going to get me, you better get you type of mentality isn't working for us. And when we look at groups of people that come together and work together, these are the people that are ruling the world. These are the people that are changing the world, you know. So, I mean, just look at the ant kingdom and, you know, just in nature, you know, when you have these different species that come together and work together, you get more done. You have more power. You have more purchasing power. You know, so it's just it's really like common sense. If we want to make this life experience easier on ourselves, for ourselves, it's best to come together and unify, because, you know, teamwork is what really makes the dream work at the end of the day. So
say it again. Say it again. Say it again. Teamwork is what?
What makes the dream work.
All right. That is very, very imperative. So I'd like to thank you. If you have any more to say, or if you have a question about our Nuwaubian nation, feel free to ask.
No, I'm just listening in right now, Queen. I always support whatever in any way that I can. But I'm just listening in right now. That's it.
Oh, we appreciate you calling, because we haven't had many sisters. Like, we do have the sisters calling. They don't call in to speak, but they're listening, and it's a good thing too. But we had a lot of brothers calling, and it's always good to hear from the mothers, the nurturers. The advice you gave was very amazing. It was very, and the other sister that called, I loved her accent from over in Europe. She had an English accent. She was amazing, and what she said also, and it's really good to hear that the sisters are coming through and letting us know what we have to do. I have another question that I want to raise before you go. Is how can we? How will our community live and benefit our children, our adults? And you can give a little background. Yeah, how will our community living benefit our children and our adults by us being in a community setting, living in a community environment?
Well, I think a lot of the foolishness would definitely stop. Like a lot of the things that we see going on right now with for one, like a lot of the crime, that the black on black crime, the police, just shooting down people in the streets, So I think that when you're policing your own community, when you're working together as a community, when you know who's who and what's what, and you see value in one another. The only reason why a lot of these things take place is because we don't see value in one another, so we don't invest in one another. You don't see why this person's life is important, or you can't see why this sister here is important without, being a hater or, ego tripping or just thinking something negative off the jump, because you don't see the value in her. And I think that, once we begin to come together as a community and see each other truly as brothers and sisters and see value within one another, when you value something, you're going to try to protect what it is that you value. But when you don't see no value, in your brother, you don't have no problem with blowing his head off, and no one else does either, So I think that, coming together as a community can really just set our children up in the future for a better way of life, because they'll have a stronger foundation to move from, to operate from. All of these, the separation between the whole male-female dynamic, the scatteredness throughout the community. You got, like, for instance, I'm all the way down here in South Florida, you all the way here in North Miami. Even though we're in the same state, we still separated, right? But if we're together, we grow in power, and we grow in strength. And, so I think it's beneficial in so many different ways. It's a lot. It's just an overall benefit. If we can come together and build in that type of environment, The elderly is looked after, looked for. You don't have to worry about putting your elders in these facilities where they're not being taken care of. They have real foods, where they can be healed and, just have a better quality of life in their golden years and things like that.
It's so true. I want to really commend you and thank you, because this sister, she deals with the moringa. She really got me into moringa. She also gave me the moringa pods. I have a huge moringa tree now growing with pods hanging off, thanks to this sister. And moringa is very amazing. I get my black soap from her. I get my shea butter from her to make my products. We met at a Kwanzaa with Dr. Umar. Was it about 3 years ago, sis? About 3 years ago, and we hit it off right there. I think she had knew me from my YouTube show or maybe social media, but we hit it off and we stayed in contact. And after that, we both vibrate on the same.
Police get terrible. Those who are voted in and elected seems to only work for the devil. From birth we feel the pangs of pain.
Get away from you. You have to be persistent with them and keep them with the knowledge of what they know about life and how to help create happiness to other people. And the children in school have a problem with bullying and everything, and had the parent not talk to that child and let them know you don't go along with what other people do and you know it's wrong. You have to show them out of the love you have for them. And a lot of times that negativity goes away when you show love. And when you teach a child how to show love to others, it makes it very easy to live in this world together.
That is so true. That is so true. And hearing it from a mother, an elder tuning in, giving us that wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, I really appreciate you tuning in. I mean, you really made our evening, tonight by just tuning in, because you could have been doing something else on a Saturday night, but you chose to call in, to tune in, and give us the key to us living together in the community is the love. We got to vibrate that love. Love is the key. Love conquers all. What would you say as an elder, because in a community there's always going to be polygamous relationships. You as an elder, what would you say for the women that are come in a relationship and there may be two of them with one brother, sometimes it's 3 or 4, because when I went to Africa, there was 4 women, 4 wives to one husband. What would you say as an elder, Mom?
Okay. Over in Africa, they're taught. This is what they're taught. It's not being taught here to live that way. So, I wouldn't say it's wrong because I wasn't raised up that way. But I know here in the United States, I disagree with polygamy because it causes problems. And you want a happy house. You don't want a house full of hate or misunderstanding. And, different women have different thoughts roaming through their heads with a relationship like this. So I can't agree with polygamy.
Even in Africa, they have their discrepancies as well. I mean, when I got off the plane in Senegal, the Senegalese women were coming with VCRs and TVs and crashing them because their husbands was over there cheating in Europe. And I actually did a lot of interviewing the women there. And the new generation of the brothers and sisters, they don't really want to do the polygamy as well. Many of them that I spoke to, the brothers said, oh, no, I just want one wife because there's too much problems. And then the sisters said, oh, no, I just want one, or I don't want my husband to have another wife because when we get them in, they become disagreeable. They don't agree. They don't get along. It's just too much chaos and confusion. Today's society, even over in Africa, they got television, they got the internet. So everywhere around the world that is practicing polygamous relationships are now having problems because the people are now tuning in to America, and they're thinking like Americans, and everywhere in the world wants to be an American. They really don't, they're not that happy with their culture because they see another culture on these TV shows, these reality shows, on YouTube, or, wherever you look, there is someone, portraying a different character that these young people, even the older ones, are totally into. So thank you, Mom, for your wonderful, enlightening message. It was so great to have an elder on the line. We do have some other hands raised, and we're going to go now to 240-2277. Love. Thank you so much. Yes?
Got it. Before we go to that next caller, for the questions to come up for some sharing, I would like to just first say that, and when we start talking about polygamous relationships, in order for any relationship to work, whether it's polygamous or it's dealing with a mono approach, one man, one wife, it has to be some kind of structure in place, because there are people who don't believe in there are people who don't believe or accept polygamy as the way. They accept monogamous relationship, but haven't had a decent monogamous relationship to be with that particular individual for a particular amount of time. And it's the same thing with people who practice relationships. Just because you practice a monogamous relationship or a polygamous relationship doesn't mean you're going to be successful or you won't have your problems. The bottom line is, as the sister said, who came and self-development. You have to know what you want. You have to know your focus. You have to know your direction. And based on these particular key points, then a qualified mate or husband or wife comes into play. Now So now you know what to look for when that person you two may meet out not looking for each other. Some people look for a mate, which is nothing wrong with that. People have a right to look for that. Just like they have a right to look for a job. People don't believe in looking. But whenever those individuals meet, they should have some idea of what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, and have a game plan so that when they're able to sit down and discuss their possible futures together, they're able to move forward together. Now, as far as polygamy is concerned, there's a professor here in Georgia State University who wrote a book. Sisters have to want for themselves what they want, and that's I think it's crucial. If you're going to have multiple sisters being with a man who I feel should be qualified. Not everybody is qualified to have a polygamous relationship. Not every man is qualified to have a monogamous relationship. And so development is key. But when we do start to have these types of discussions on how we're going to move forward, and if it's happened to be in a polygamous relationship, most people who don't accept polygamy are involved in polygamy, because there are two types of polygamy. We have what they call open polygamy, where you have a male and females, or female and males. They have a discussion about the relationship, and it's open. There's communication. Everybody knows what's going on. There's transparency. A closed polygamous relationship is when you have a couple pretending to have a monogamous relationship, but somebody is stepping out in the background. Be it the man is stepping out with another woman, and the woman knows about the other woman. That's a type of closed polygamy. Or vice versa, the woman steps out and she's dealing with brother. The brother knows she's in a relationship. This is what you call closed polygamy. There is no communication. There is no family setting. There is no moving forward in that direction. This is sneakiness. So there has to be certain things that have to be discussed to move forward in that type of capacity. Here in the United Nuwaubian Nation of Moors, we don't teach that polygamy is the best or the worst way. In fact, our teacher, Dr. Malakazi, according to our family guy, said that we should be in a monogamous relationship only because of the types of problems that was arising for people, as I said earlier, when they think about polygamy, they was thinking about only sex. Most people, when you even bring it up, that's the first thing that pops in their head is, the sexual part. But there's much more to a relationship than laying down with the other partner. There's communication, there's sharing, there's responsibilities, there's things that have to be done outside of when they're in the bedroom. And the things that usually happen outside of the bedroom is usually the things that determine if that particular couple or couples have the ability to last and stand the test of time. So we don't say that you cannot be in a polygamous relationship because we feel each person is qualified to make their own decision as a free will being. But there are a lot of problems that can arise from people trying to have multiple women or force this type of situation on their spouses without it being completely agreed upon to move to the next phase. Now, if you have a particular spouse that has the ability to accept that and wants to move forward with that, then I think that's healthy from the beginning standpoint. And then now they're able to move forward to see who's qualified to join in on that family setting. It can work. It does work. And it's how we as Moors have always done it. But when you fast forward and come over to the United States, where there's a lack of equal rights, a lack of representation, the need to control other races of people, because it's a known fact that Moors reproduce faster than their counterparts, Caucasians or Europeans. There is no discussion of black people trying to have children through test tubes or donors. There are some women who may have issues, but on a mass scale, sisters don't have a problem reproducing. Europeans do because of genetic deficiencies that they are aware of, and so they come up with plans to be able to still produce offspring. And so when you think about control of a population, I find it ironic here in the United States of America that we can have a conversation about same-sex marriage, but we can't have a conversation about polygamous relationships. And these are all things that happens within the community. So they are worthy of discussion. But anytime you have a situation where states are recognizing the same sex, which is anti-nature because you cannot produce children that way. So it's actually against nature. You cannot family build. Absolutely. You cannot nation build when you have people of the same sex together because they have a certain behavior that they want to implement as opposed to a way of life being implemented. Now, there are some discussions on why people are gay and why people are not gay, but one thing that we do know is it's a behavior. You can turn it off. But because we're in a country where sexuality is out of control and, every other video is somebody kissing the same sex person, they got a lot of women on women now.
It's annoying.
So it becomes the norm. If even on television, you look, there's now interracial couples. Almost every major black star that's in some show has a white wife, or if it's a sister, she has a white husband. So there's a lot of things being pushed in the media. Now, that doesn't mean that it's evil to date outside your race, but it does bring in certain discrepancies when you start dealing with genetics. And when we start talking about advancing based on our progeny, it's imperative that we stick to the same race family, because only in the human species do we not stick in our race family because of things that have been taught to us like racism or not being able to cross over other boundaries. But in terms of nature was to be an example of what we should do and how we should follow in order to be productive and maintain a way of life and stay on the planet. Because when you start introducing homosexuality, now you're talking about a species that's not going to survive. The species is designed at that point to get rid of itself because you cannot produce. Now, I don't care even if you're adopting. It's still an alternative third party outside of the immediate situation in order to have the illusion of family and so far as reproduction. What makes us unique as mammals is the ability to reproduce our own offspring. And so when you look in terms of nature, there's no talk of, racism amongst the animals, because another animal doesn't cross over that barrier. A hawk doesn't cross over to say, you know what, I see this attractive eagle over here. Let's see what we can make happen here. Or this black army ant decides it wants to leave the black army ants colony and go over here with the green ants. It just doesn't happen.
Right.
Cheetahs stay with cheetahs, lions stay with lions, gazelles stay with gazelles, and so forth and so on. So even when we fast forward to our own race group and ethnicity, it's important that we stay within our family, not for races insofar as that what they teach racism is, which they say racism is hate. So we know that any word that you have the suffix IST on the end of it means it's one that's proficient in something, pianist, pharmacist, etc. But only when they introduce the word racist, that word is somehow different from all the others. Now it's a negative. But what racist really means is one who is for their race, not to push another down or to step over another, but they're for their kind. The lions look out for the lions. They're not concerned what's happening in the cheetah colony, because the cheetahs should be responsible for that. And if they don't take responsibility for that, then the cheetahs will become an endangered species and go extinct. So it's imperative that we mind our own business, so to speak, and start to love ourselves so that we can love our kind and we can treat each other with love and respect. Because when we start talking about love, which the one sister who called in was sharing, saying that, love is not being taught anymore. I think love is being taught, and I think there's plenty of love to go around, but there's a confusion on what love is. You can ask a bunch of people what is love, and everybody has a different interpretation on what love is. And this is why it's crucial when we talk about a family setting, as I spoke about earlier about the community. We accept the fact that you have to have a four-dimensional community in order to survive. A sound mind and a sound body. Sound mind and a sound body, and a sound society with a sound environment. So that is the four-dimensional program that we accept as facts within our Holy Tabernacle, within our United Nuwaubian Nation of Moors, within the Yamasee tribe of Native Americans, in order to move us forward. Because if we don't all know what love is, and love can be broken down simply to mean caring, true caring. When we learn to care, let's drop the word love and let's just say let's learn. Let's start to care. Let's start to care for one another. Let's start to take responsibility for each other. As the sister who called in from Miami or in Florida said, we have to see value in one another. And so if we don't see value in one another, then there's no caring there. You don't care about what's not important to you. But when it's important to you, then there's a level of care there. So we have to learn to care for one another. The brothers have to learn to respect their women, and learn to listen to the women. A lot of brothers like to give guidance, but don't like to receive guidance. A lot of sisters like to talk over them and not necessarily listen to them. They start to come with masculine energy. You're supposed to have an abundance of feminine energy. And so when you have two masculine energies going at each other, this is going to lead to domestic violence, because the brother is really dealing with another brother in energy, even though it may be a woman in front of him.
Right.
So a lot of situations can be spearheaded. It's not to say just because you're feminine, I won't hit you. That's wrong. But in a lot of cases, if women knew when to just kill a situation and control the masculine energy, which feminine energy has the ability to do when done properly, it can stop a lot of situations from escalating, and then we can talk later on the back end when things have cooled down, so to speak. So when we start talking about polygamy and monogamous relationship, they're both warranted. Monogamous relationships that don't work. In fact, if we was to be honest and look around us right now and say who's in a monogamous relationship right now, started off with somebody and they still with that same person. You see, so there's a lot of jumping around and moving around within the monogamous concept because even this country pretends to be a country that wants to be high value, but then you have things like the Clinton thing that took place in the Oval Office where they teach one thing, but in the Oval Office it was something totally different. Or in the case of Kennedy, who was known for being with multiple women, who was also involved and married. So this is on a national level. Then you fast forward that down to the commoner, who is not really dealing with the same type of pressures that somebody might be dealing with on a national level, but still involved in the same type of situation. So we have to do a lot of self-evaluation. We have to do a lot of cleaning up within ourselves, which is what I was talking about earlier. All this could be eliminated with the use of one word, ego, because the ego represents the I principle. I this, I that, I don't like this, I don't like that. Well, tell me what you like. You get what I'm saying? And then once we know what you like, now we can build on what you do like as opposed to what you don't like. Because you may find by eliminating the I principle and start bringing in the us, the we, the our, team, now people are able to feel like they're in a more cooperative setting where it's not just about one individual. You can't have a man to totally dominate a relationship. There's going to be compromise, and because there has to be compromise, there has to be give and take. There has to be a time where people can apologize even when they're not wrong for the sake of the healthiness of the relationship, just so that they can continue to move forward. Because when the ego comes in, the ego always has to be right. So right to the point that the relationship is over now because they just had to be right to the very end. So we have to learn to eliminate and be able to monitor these disagreeable thoughts that enter into our faculties and weed them out and start to pull on the more receptive and more cooperative thoughts that help us unify. Because thoughts come through people's minds all day. But when you don't have the psychic self-defense needed to filter out the disagreeable thoughts from the positive thoughts, this is where the trouble comes in. And so it's a lot of mind activity, a lot of chatter in the head, so much so that a lot of people don't like it to be quiet. They always have music on. They always got to have the TV. They need to go to sleep with the TV on. Somebody always got to be doing something so that they don't have to hear their own thoughts.
No, they don't want a quiet time.
The cleaning up of the community. Right. They don't want to hear themselves. So when we cleaning up a community, it starts with self. And so there's a lot of guidelines that we have enforced and implemented within our United Nuwaubian Nation of Moors, Yamasee Tribe of Native Americans, to help better assist us in moving forward. Because if we're going to move forward, we're going to have tools in place that we can utilize in order to move forward. Within our family guide, we have what we call the 19 responsibilities for a man and woman. There's 19 apiece. And every man and every woman should know these responsibilities, which is a key criteria for people who come into our community to know these things, because a lot of the relationships that fail, they don't have something to build off of. They don't have a good foundation, so they may take what they've learned in their life, which may not be all the best things. They might have saw their mother with multiple men, might have saw their father with multiple women, and so this is very dysfunctional growing up, where you have very few can say that they had mother and father in the same environment. And not only that, because sometimes mother and father are there but don't like each other, but they're there for the sake of the children. That's not healthy either. Yeah. But I'm talking about you have mother and father in an environment and it was a healthy upbringing. And they saw mom and pop, as some say, work together to build a future for not only for themselves but for their children. So when we're talking about polygamy and monogamy, they're very touchy subjects, like anything that has real value. They're very touchy, and the reason why they're usually that touchy is because people start to internalize them and start to personalize them, and talk about them from a more personal perspective as from a more holistic, open perspective on the pros and the cons, because they both have pros and they both have cons, and so I hope that was able to clear up some discrepancies on our position within our community on how we feel about polygamy and how we feel about monogamy.
Absolutely.
We feel like both are welcome, but regardless if you're in a monogamous or a polygamy type relationship, you should be qualified to have that, and it'll show in the coming together of both sides of the spectrum. So I don't know who's next in the rotation.
Oh, I do.
Got it.
I do.
But we can go ahead and start to open up the lines to start getting some of these hands. We have quite a few hands up.
Yeah, but the ones that's above, I know which ones, because the ones that the hands are up, we already spoke with, and there's two new ones, and we're going to start with area code 240-2251. Greetings, welcome to Right Knowledge Radio. You're on the air.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all
right. How are
right.
you, brother? Welcome.
I'm all right. How you doing?
Welcome.
This the thing about polygamy, and I'll touch on that really quick, is that it creates, and it does work in some societies, but it really depends on the setting and what it's in, because it creates an imbalance between people. If you have one man who can have three women, for example, he's in a relationship with three women, there's got to be a reason for why they decided to have that relationship, and because there's an imbalance, the relationship is going to be based on more than just, the physical relationship, the emotional. It's going to come down to can this triangle, or however big that group is, provide for each other in a setting. If everybody isn't equally working and equally doing the same thing to provide for that one single household, because everybody's going to count for one household, then you're going to have a problem. What you end up having is a stratification between your people, because when you have a group of people who at this point or at this juncture in our existence can't deal with one monogamous relationship and keep a stable household, now you entering into 2 and 3 and 4 people, you're going to have a stratification where now at some point it's going to become about money. Who can afford to have 2 and 3 wives? Because 3 people can have fun being together and be like, hey, emotional, whatever. When it comes down to the money, if